By the time we come to chapter 11 of 2 Samuel, David is almost halfway through his 40-year reign over Israel. And in this chapter, we have one of the most tragic events in David's life. The person who was described as a man after God's own heart committed the most heinous of sins and brought dreadful dishonour on God's name. As David tried to cover up his sin of adultery, the man against whom he had sinned stands out as a faithful and committed servant. We're going to read a little about that in 2 Samuel chapter 11 and verses 8 to 11. And David said to Uriah, "Go down to thy house and wash thy feet." And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, Camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, The ark, and Israel, and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into mine house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. Faithful service and commitment are not valued in the world as once they were. How many times have you been encouraged to switch your electricity supplier, your bank account, even your mortgage to another provider who'll give you a better deal? I think that my mother and father stayed with the same mortgage provider throughout the years of their mortgage, perhaps out of a sense of commitment to them. How often is that loyalty rewarded nowadays? I think the opposite is probably rewarded, and I think the loyal customers often get the worst deals. Our chapter begins with what seems like a fairly innocuous situation. At the time when kings go forth to battle, David tarried still at Jerusalem, verse 1. When he really should have been active, he was taking his leisure, and it gave opportunity for sin. Perhaps there's a lesson for us in our modern society which places such a high value on entertainment and recreation. So David did sin, and he sinned grievously. When, as a result of David's sin, Uriah's wife conceived, David immediately sought to cover it up. He sent for Uriah and encouraged him to go down to thy house and wash thy feet, verse 8. The king sent a present to him to encourage him to go home to relax with his wife. But rather than relaxing, Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house, verse 9. Very conscious of the fact that his fellow soldiers were risking their lives on the battlefield, he felt his duty to them and to his king. His faithfulness and service meant that he wouldn't just take it easy, and he said to David, As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing, verse 11. It was actually a faithfulness that was going to cost him his life. Listen to the words of the Lord Jesus to the assembly at Smyrna. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. The Lord Jesus himself is called faithful and true. Revelation 19, verse 11. He has been faithful and true to us even to death. And it is that kind of lifelong faithfulness that he wants to see in us. Let us be faithful no matter what it might cost.